let me start by putting you a little bit on the spot. I think you
All
can do
right.
this. Do you have, or is it possible to have a one sentence definition of what is the metaverse?
I have my own one sentence definition of the metaverse. I call it, and I think of it as the post text internet of experiences.
Post text.
Yeah, because the internet as we know it is text based, it's keyboard based. But one of the very important things I think about the metaverse is that it is post text. It's about images, it's about three-dimensional objects, it's about moving through spaces. There's not a lot of written words in the metaverse. And there's all kinds of implications for that. What does a search engine look like in the metaverse? What do you search for? How do you actually create it? But it also, another implication is that it sets us free from the keyboard. And I think that's actually going to be an extremely important development of the metaverse as we move into a more immersive, experiential way of interacting with our computing. We're really going to have to rethink a lot of the things that we're taking for granted about our interfaces.
And the other keyword you used there in your one sentence definition was experience.
Yeah,
So we're not just reading, we're not just hearing, we're not just watching, we're experiencing.
yeah, we're living the information that we get, the exchanges that we have with other people. Um, instead of, having an NFT that you see on a wall in a gallery, your avatar is wearing the NFT, or you're experiencing it in other ways. I mean, I was at AWE this year, which is the main AR and VR conference. And the winner of the best VR experience was OVR, which is olfactory. They add the olfactory layer to VR. So bringing in more experiences, and ultimately, haptics as well, but really experiencing things rather than, I mean, if you think about it, the internet itself, it's so text-based, and we older people are used to getting information through almost purely the written word and the occasional image. And what I see, one of the big changes that's happening with the generations is that younger people really do a lot of their information absorption through video and through images and through experiencing things in a kind of, in the Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft kind of gaming model. And I think all of those things are going to come together, and we're going to become a very post-text society. I don't know what this means for reading. I don't know what this means for literature. I don't know what this means for books, but I think we're on the threshold of a completely new way of interacting with and understanding information, and how information flows, is stored, and is understood.
Wow.
So yeah, I know it's big, right? This is, I mean, we're used to thinking of the metaverse as kind of, being big in a lot of different ways, but I don't think enough people are kind of talking about the post-text element of it.
And before we get into what Nokia's role is in this, just quickly going back, olfactory. So which is the sense of smell. So does that mean there's only one left? There's only taste left.
Well, yeah,
Is
and
there a
well,
way?
and there are companies that are working on taste as well. I don't remember any of the company names,
I'm
but I
wondering, is there a
know there's at
need?
least one Japanese company that I know of.
Really? Is
Yeah.
there a need to simulate taste,
Well,
or
I,
would it
I
just
don't
be?
know. I don't know. The thing is, though, I don't know. I don't know as much about taste, but smell, for example, is actually wired into the lizard brain level of our consciousness. Smell is something that we, it's a very elementary and basic kind of thing, and makes us react in very strong ways. We don't filter smell through our prefrontal cortex. We don't think about smells. Smells actually connect to us yeah, lizard brain. Um, and I don't know if taste is as fundamental to us as to our thinking and to our experiencing profiles as smell is, but it's certainly, again, something that is another way for us to understand information. Um, yeah, I don't know. You're right. We don't walk around tasting everything in the physical world, so maybe
No.
taste is a little less necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I would like to ask, what is Nokia? Why is Nokia interested in the metaverse?
Well, first of all, it's almost impossible to ignore these days. So, everybody's finding a way to be interested. But in all honesty, we've actually been looking at this space for a while because not so much the kind of the metaverse space, but the way that connectivity is going to be enabling the hardware of the future. And specifically the wireless high definition VR headsets, which today you have to have, a cable connected to a powerful laptop, but particularly the head mounted devices that are going to be necessary to experience augmented reality. Those kinds of things are still in development. We're looking to see what Apple comes out with fairly soon. We're looking to see what Meta's Project Cambria looks like when it comes out. But I think we're on the brink of some really interesting new hardware in this area. And the thing is that for a head mounted device to be, because I wear glasses, right? You and I are looking at each other. You can see that I wear glasses. I'm pointing to my glasses, so I'm saying this. These glasses are, these are just regular eyeglasses, and they're not very heavy, and they're not, they're not unstylish. And in order to maintain this kind of style profile, because we're all human, we don't want to put something big and clunky on our faces because it would be uncomfortable, first of all. But if it's unstylish, nobody's going to wear it all day. And so, so for augmented reality headsets to really truly take off, they're going to need to have the same kind of profile as regular eyeglasses. And the only way that you can accomplish that is by moving the computing off of the device and into the network. And having the computing in the network requires then a very strong connection. And by strong, it's not, non-technical term, meaning high bandwidth and low latency connecting to the headset. And so, so for example, to give a really concrete example here, in Google's developer conference and in May, at the end of the conference, they just dropped, without comments at all, just very, very cheeky of them, just a video of glasses showing people putting on these glasses, and then these glasses giving them real-time translation, speech to text translation of the words that people were saying to them. So they basically have subtitles that they can see through their glasses for everyday life. And they also have translations from one language to another, leading to subtitles. Very practical. That's something that instantly people can understand the utility of. How was that actually working? Well, of course, Google, making no comment on the video, didn't say. However, we know that processing, that speech to text processing, particularly translation, that is more computing than would comfortably fit into the shape profile of those glasses. And so the kind of, the speculation that I've seen out there is that there was probably a Bluetooth connection to a phone, and the speech to text translation was happening on the phone, and then the Bluetooth coming back with the actual text that you're seeing in the glasses. Now, that's fine for a small audio file and just going to your phone. But if you start dealing with front-facing cameras, actually analyzing the visual surroundings, now the amount of information that you're passing is much more than can be handled well over Bluetooth. And you're going to need to have a high bandwidth, low latency connection coming off of those glasses, and you're going to need to have a lot more processing power than can be held in a smartphone. And so that means a connection to the network, sending those visuals that are coming back from the glasses, or an abstracted version of those visuals for analysis, and then coming back with some kind of information, some kind of result for you to then see in an augmented reality way. And so that connection, understanding that connection, what that connection is going to be, how far away from the end user can that computing sit? Does it need to be within, 100 meters? Can it be as far as 10 miles away? You know, what exactly is this going to look like? How are we going to build the network to support these things? Those are the questions that we're actually looking at and we're dealing with. So this is, it's grunty infrastructure work in the back end. And I should actually say very clearly right now, we are not manufacturing the glasses. We are not manufacturing any of the headsets. We're doing none of the end devices. We're purely interested in making sure that connectivity works to make these end devices produced by other companies work well when the time comes.
Wow. Yep. And that's going to be a huge thing. So just recapping your example. So the glasses don't do any computing. The phone does the computing. But you're saying
Right.
that with 5G, even the phone may not do the computing. The computing will be done somewhere far away.
Somewhere else, right, where you can have like, just a whole stack of servers to really give you superior computing power, really, really, bring all the oomph and the grunt. And so, but it's not just about moving the computing off of the glasses to keep with the form factor. There's two other elements that actually moving the computer off the glasses gives you as well. It makes it cheaper for the end device. For the actual glasses, you don't cost so much if you're paying, you don't have a big fat chip sitting in them. It also means that they don't generate as much heat, which means the glasses stay cool, and that's very important for wearability. So there's a lot of things that actually removing the computing from the end device does for you. And what's really interesting is that exactly those same problems and the same solution of moving the computing into the network is something that we're seeing in drones and robotics control as well. If you want to have a cheaper end device that doesn't get very hot and that also and the battery lasts a much longer time. That's another really important thing. If the end device doesn't have a lot of processing, then having the minimal processing on the end device, and then the processing happening in the network, that profile, that architectural profile is ideal not only for AR and VR glasses, but for drones and robotics and lots of visual analytics cases and cloud gaming as well. So it's not so much that we're like really heavily focused on VR and AR as enablers of the metaverse. It's that we see that this particular structure of having computing located in the network is something that's going to enable the next step for a lot of different industries. And it's almost kind of a side effect. Oh yeah, we're going to be enabling the metaverse at the same time.
Awesome.
So that's why we've been working on this for a while. And it's only, kind of only recently like, oh look, this means we're supporting the metaverse. Okay, cool.
Awesome. Now we are talking a little bit in the near, maybe distant future. What about today? Without those glasses, can we still? What kind of experiences are available on just handheld devices?
Oh, well, tons of stuff that we're not involved in because we're purely focused on the connectivity angle. But I mean, right now, specifically, augmented reality, there's just so much that's going on. There's one of my favorites is a company called Bad VR that's based out of Los Angeles. They have a product called C Signal, where you can use either some kind of headset or your handset and literally see the strength of the wireless signal in the air around you. So if if you're sitting in a room and your Wi-Fi is not good, you can actually use this device to see where is the Wi-Fi better, and then to go there and get that better experience. In fact, it was funny. Bad VR was at AWE, and there were so many demos on the demo floor and so many Wi-Fi hotspots that they were all kind of clashing with each other. And it was funny because I went over to the C Signal to the Bad VR guys, and they turned on C Signal. I was looking around. It's like, oh yeah, it's not just guessing that there's bad Wi-Fi. Now I can literally see that the Wi-Fi in here is terrible. So.
Cool. So it's not just we're not just in an intermediate phase where we're waiting for the glasses. There's actually stuff happening. There's
Totally.
stuff to experience right now.
Absolutely. Now, for the really immersive kinds of stuff, yeah, we are waiting for the hardware, and the optics have to be developed, and the battery stuff still needs to be developed. And as I said, we're still working on the connectivity part, and on the chip side, that it's what I call splitting the chip instead of having one big fat chip in your end device. Understanding what processes have to stay on the end device and what can go into the network. That R&D work is still going on right now, largely driven by Qualcomm. They've been at least the most public about it. And so we're still kind of waiting for the chips and therefore waiting for the headsets. So for the augmented reality side of things, you know, the building blocks are there, they're in development. It's going to be still a little bit of time before they're kind of the R&D is all finished. Virtual reality, of course, is way ahead, and it doesn't really, all the connectivity that virtual reality needs is already there because, you know, most commercial grade VR headsets, well, you know, the Quest, for example, they run on Wi-Fi and they're fine, you know, so there's no connectivity issues there at all. And so there's clearly lots of immersive, wonderful things happening in the VR world already.
I noticed you haven't mentioned, I mean, you didn't mention the word 5G, but it is 5G, isn't it, that we're
It is
talking
5G,
about?
yeah. 4G just does not, the pipe is not big enough in terms of the amount of data that can pass through, and the latency, which is the speed with which connections are actually made, it's just not low enough. And so you really do need 5G for this. And in fact, this whole concept of splitting the chip, of having some processing on the end device and the rest of the processing in the network, and having that enable drones and robotics and VR and AR, for me, that's actually the real reason that 5G exists. But because we're still kind of waiting for the hardware to catch up a little bit, that's a little bit why 5G hasn't really fulfilled its full promise yet. Why people are like, well, what is 5G for? Well, it's for this. We're just waiting for the hardware. We had a similar thing happen back in the 3G days. 3G was originally introduced in 2004. But it was a little bit, again, it was a connectivity waiting for hardware to fully utilize it. The 3G iPhone did not come out. I mean, the initial iPhone was 2007. That was only 2.5G. I think the first 3G iPhone wasn't until 2008, which was a full 4 years after 3G had happened.
Wow.
But you know, yeah, exactly. But then the iPhone was really kind of, you know, retroactive, like, oh, this is what 3G is for. I think we're going to see a similar thing with 5G. So we're kind of in the like, yeah, with the hardware that will really take advantage of 5G isn't quite out there yet, but it's coming soon. I tell you, it's coming soon.
And am I correct in saying in terms of numbers, the leap from fourth to fifth gen is way bigger than any of the previous leaps?
It is. It's a total reimagination of the architectural structure. And so, you know, and yes, it enables more bandwidth and lower latency, but the other thing that enables, which isn't so much a metaverse thing, but it enables just millions of connections to be made to a single base station, as opposed to just, you know, a few. And the reason that you want this is to be able to have just gazillions of sensors everywhere. And so that's actually much more, it's more kind of an Internet of Things sort of structure. But enabling that, actually, it took a total reimagining of the entire structure of the network. And so, yeah, so it's a big change, and it's a big investment in, you know, the companies that, you know, are out there building 5G networks. And, you know, and what's really great is that I think, you know, within the next year or two, as the appropriate hardware starts coming out, we're going to start getting much more excited about what 5G is enabling. And we really will start seeing what's different from 4G. But that said, there's kind of, you know, within the connectivity industry, we kind of have the way that it's kind of gone is that the odd numbered G's tend to have a big amount of promise that are really then fulfilled fully with the even numbered G's. And so 3G had a lot of promise, but we were talking a lot about video. Well, 4G was the thing that really delivered the video. And then with 5G, we're kind of talking about the metaverse, and not to, you know, freak anybody out too much, but 6G, I think, is going to be the one
Oh
that
my
really delivers
goodness.
the metaverse. Yeah, because when 5G was envisioned, the whole concept of the metaverse wasn't a thing. And you know, we build these specs, we build these standards based on what we think is going to be needed. And back when 5G was being spec'd out, what was clear was video streaming. So the way that 5G is spec'd out is it's got a huge amount of downlink. So it allows like a lot of traffic to come from the network to the end user. But the uplink, so the traffic from the end user back into the system, That's not so big. And developers are already running into those limitations because, of course, we have these situations where you want to be able to scan the visual reality of somebody's entire surroundings and send that into the network for analysis. And you can't because the uplink is too small. So, so we're going to be getting parity with the uplink and the downlink. That's going to come in 5G advanced, which is kind of 2027. But right now, all the talk about the metaverse and kind of what that could be and what it should be, that's, I can tell you that's really informing the standards for 6G, which are being debated within the industry right now.
Wow.
And yeah, and the way these things happen is everybody looks around and goes, all right, what's a problem that we're having? and what can we do to solve it? So, so it's actually really good timing that we're starting to build these 5G things and finding out what the limitations are, because then we can actually design 6G to actually solve those limitations.
I have to say, it's so cool that this is the first time on this podcast the word 6G has been mentioned. So talk about thinking forward. And I think it might be the first time I've heard anyone say it in real terms.
I know. I mean, the standards have not been set yet. It's still, something. It's and the way that these standards happen is that there's, the companies that develop things. It's us and it's other companies out there who are all in this industry. We all kind of, everybody throws their ideas on the table, and then there's a group consensus about what should go into the standard. And so it's still very much the ideas on the table stage. It's super, super early. But it takes a long time because once you've decided, okay, these are the things we're going to address, then you have to go solve these problems. It takes years of research. And so this is, we're the beginning points of 6G. And for timeline purposes, 6G will probably be hitting in about 2030. But the thinking and the planning has to start now.
Okay. Let me quickly ask you, because you're so excited about this, and I've seen you talk before, and you have so much energy. I would love to know, when did you first come across this stuff? When did you first? Do you remember your first AR/VR experience?
Yeah. Well, my first for AR, that one was more of a conceptual thing. It was when I read Kevin Kelly's article in Wired magazine, I think in February of 2019, Welcome to the Mirror World, or, describing the mirror world, which is an AR kind of world. And I hadn't really, filters, sure, but I hadn't really seen it too much. But that article just kind of exploded my mind that, oh my God, this is going to be gigantic. This is, I completely agree with him. This is going to be something that's going to be huge. But my first virtual reality hands-on experience, it was at, it was Mobile World Congress Americas in San Francisco, and I think it was in 2017 or 2018. Anyway, the Samsung booth at it, they had virtual reality headsets. They were probably HTCs. They're probably Vives, and they had on it an app from the company Verzoom, and they had exercise bicycles. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And so you got on the exercise bicycle, and then you put on the VR headset, and you could play games that were linked into the exercise bicycles. And the game that I played on the booth that day, it was a tank game. And so you're a tank, and you totally are driving the tank, and the speed of your tank actually is the pedaling that you're doing on the bicycle. And you look to where you're looking is where the tank goes. And then there was thumb controls on the handlebars so that you could actually shoot other tanks. I sat on that bike in the middle of this expo, dressed in my nice business clothes, for half an hour, shooting tanks and having an absolutely amazing time. And then when I got off, I was drenched, absolutely drenched in sweat. I had to go around the rest of the day, like, looking completely bedraggled. But it was so fantastic that experience made me go out, and this was pre-Oculus, made me go out and spend the ginormous amounts of money it took then to have a VR rig at home, because you had to buy the expensive laptop and you had to buy the headset that was connected to the laptop with a wire. So I could have VZ Fit at home. And then after they've got a whole bunch of game universes. You can ride a unicorn sailing through the skies, gathering gems from the clouds. You can ride bicycle races, you can have car races. They're all really wonderful because you're gamifying exercise. And then, of course, things like Beat Saber came in and Supernatural came in, and I quite frankly do all of my fitness in virtual reality, and that really became useful with lockdown. But I could be going to the gym now, but I don't, because I enjoy the gamified fitness the most. So for me, that was something that instantly clicked with me, and I have absolutely stayed. You know, every day I'm in VR every day for at least an hour working out.
Amazing story. Love it. Okay, just before we finish, I would like to get a little bit philosophical. Now, you talked about your interest, Nokia's interest, being not in the hardware, not in the software, but in building the connections,
Yes.
enabling the connections. And we could argue this technology it was conceived originally in order to allow people to connect. It's at the end of the day, it's all about connecting. But then I'm wondering, like, because I get asked this question, and I would love to know your opinion. You just said, "Oh, you don't want to go to the gym anymore. You'd rather work out in VR." So I'm wondering, is it gonna create more connections or less in the future? Like, have you thought about this?
Oh, yeah, that's actually a question that comes up a lot in the discussions that I have as well. And and it's funny because there's a lot of people who are afraid that it's going to be kind of the Ready Player One scenario where people are kind of huddled in their dystopian world and they never leave their gaming rig and they never actually see another live human being ever again. Which is pretty awful when you think about it. But
Is it possible?
uh, I don't think so. I don't think so, because if that was the direction that we were going to be going, then we wouldn't have the rise of Discord with people playing Fortnite, talking to each other on Discord as they're playing in Fortnite or Roblox or whatever. So these gaming experiences that already exist, right? People are not using them to isolate. In fact, people are already using them to come closer together. And it's really interesting. I've got two teenage boys, and during lockdown, they met other kids that they were interested in their games, and they don't live near here. And even after they've been going back to school for a full year now, their best friends are still the friends that they've made in the gaming universe, because those are the ones that are closest to their own interests. I think so I don't think there's a risk of us kind of withdrawing from humanity, because the pattern that we're seeing already with the kind of most metaverse-like things that we've got right now, which is the gaming universe, people are actually using that to drive towards more connections. I think we're social creatures, and I think that's going to be the way it goes. Where I think that the risk is, because there is a risk, is that we will only interact with people who are like us. We will no longer, if we can have total control over where we go and who we interact with, then we're not going to have these random encounters with people who are not like us. And in fact, my kids are to a certain extent able to reject the kids that they actually go to school with, because they got better friends out there in, the Fortnite world. And that's actually not good. We need to be exposed to different ways of thinking. We need to be exposed to different experiences, to different cultures, to different all kinds of things. And how we actually keep a heterogeneous level of the unexpected, where you go into worlds where you don't control everything, where unexpected things happen that expand your mind. That's going to be the harder thing for us to accomplish. And I think that's going to be a bigger challenge.
Wow, great point. Yeah, great point. Because one thing we can do, one thing machines can do is we can create order. But for a
Yeah.
machine to simulate randomness,
Randomness. and social randomness in a way that's, pleasant. Will we choose the randomness? you know, I don't know, you know, and it's not everywhere in the world that has a problem with people being in their own little enclaves and not, but it's already an actual problem in the United States and other places as well. And we need to keep encountering people who think differently than we do. We need to, you know, maintain our understanding, even that there are other ways to think. Otherwise, what happens is the rise of unilateral thought and intolerance. And that's never good. Whatever ideology that's in support it, what that's supporting, it's never good. There always needs to be challenges to thinking, and you know that randomness brings. Yeah, so we need to have a way of not controlling all of the stuff. And
Yeah,
if
and this is a
everything's
great
if everything's
reminder.
digitized, that's the challenge.
And it's
Yeah.
something that needs conscious reminding, right? Because and also let's be
Yeah.
clear, it's a small part, so it's perfectly okay to select the exact kind of people you want to be around, and we should do that, but we should leave a small part open for randomness. That
Yeah, exactly. You know, something like I love things like Lunch Club that just pair completely random people to get together and talk for an hour. So, you know, things like that. If we can make sure that we build that sort of thing into the metaverse, um, you know, that's you know that's what we need. Um, but you know, people have to perceive that there's a need for that before they'll actually go out there and consciously choose to spend their time doing that. And I'm not sure that enough of us understand the importance of maintaining exposure to diverse ways of thinking. Um, yeah,
well,
you don't get new ideas. You don't get new creativity unless you have had your mind expanded by the, oh, I had no idea that was a possibility. Cool. Oh, let me think
and
about that now.
and also that's something that has to be accidental. You
Right, you
can't
can't
set
plan it.
yourself up to be surprised.
Right. I mean, you can, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I will go into a different metaverse, you know, or a different, you know, a different world today, but it's still, it's not the same. It's not the
Yeah.
same. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, so that was a very, very long answer to your question. You know, I
No.
don't think we're going to become individually socially isolated, but I think we have the risk is it will become homogenized. Um, and that's the thing that we need to guard against.
Love it. Leslie, thank you so much for joining me. And I know it's really late there, so I really appreciate your time.
Oh, no problem. I know it's really early where you are, so I appreciate your time as well.